and I'll just be on the lookout for the other coaches. I can't believe it's already the 17th of February. I don't know where time is going.
Agreed. It's kind of crazy.
All right, we have a very packed call today, which is awesome. I'm waiting for, I see like about five other people still trying to connect. So we're going to wait for the rest of the group to join and then we will get rolling. I hope everybody is having a great start to their week. I hope you had a great Valentine's Day if that's the thing you do. We're not big Valentine's Day people. My wife made me some food for Valentine's Day and we ate with our kids. But yeah, did anybody do anything extravagant or did everybody have a great Valentine's Day overall? There's Sophie.
It was quiet for us because I had just gotten home at midnight the night before from a business trip. So doing it was perfectly fine.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite thing to do is nothing. When I don't have to work, I love to lay around. I'm chasing kids around all the time, so doing nothing doesn't happen often.
We turned the grill on and then a couple of beautiful pieces of meat, and then I did the asparagus in the house. It's perfect.
That sounds very good. Claudia, was a good day, very chill, ordered an Italian dinner. That sounds nice as well. Let me make sure I have my companion on here so I can gather notes. Um, Today, what I wanted to go over, I have several slides on cholesterol metabolism. I would say probably 80% of clients coming in here have some abnormalities with their cholesterol, and there's just so many different pieces that go into that. So I wanted to kind of break down some of the complexities. There's still a lot that we could go into, but we don't have all day to talk about cholesterol. So I wanted to hit on some of the key topics. Um, let's do this. Still have a couple more people joining. Let me pull up a share screen. All right. All right. So today I wanted to talk about understanding the roles of lipids and hormone function, exploring the connection between thyroid and metabolism, specifically lipid metabolism, and uncovering the complexities of metabolic health pathways, strategies for optimizing cholesterol and hormone balance. So, the thing that I love about working with people with hormones is it's all interconnected. Your arms connected to your hands, so kind of treating everything as an integrative piece is something that I really like to look at and get an understanding of root causes of different things in the body. So, uh, wanted to run through a couple stats here in regards to cholesterol, which is interesting. So 80 million US adults have elevated cholesterol. Approximately 25 million Americans have very high cholesterol. 1 in 4 adults over 40 take a statin. The cardiovascular disease kills 900,000 Americans annually. I know we have some people out of country, but I wanted to do some stats specifically for US. That was taken in 2023, and this equals about 1 death for every 3 deaths overall. So I do think that that's something to consider when we look at health. So, of course, I think a lot of people come here to lose weight and look better, feel better. A byproduct of that is fixing a lot of your internal health. Cholesterol is a piece of that for sure. So, kind of understanding the ins and outs of that is something that I like to hit on. So cholesterol does have some essential functions. So it's an essential molecule and every cell in your body needs it. So from brain to the start of making sex hormones, to your organs, to your mitochondria, all of those things need cholesterol. So I'm not saying cholesterol is bad, but understanding, some of the functions with cholesterol. So required for producing vital hormones and vitamin D, supports healthy function of brain and nervous system. Immune function is also a component there. Other things cholesterol is essential for is making bile acid and aiding in fat digestion. So we'll kind of go down a couple different rabbit holes. We won't go too deep. I don't want to lose anybody, but there's lots of things that tie into cholesterol metabolism as a whole. And I think this is an interesting piece. So different articles will say the amount of cholesterol absorbed by the body is different from, I see anywhere from 70. This says about 80% off some different research I looked at. But the liver produces about 80% of cholesterol. Only 20% of cholesterol comes from diet. Blood cholesterol levels are mainly regulated by the body. So the thing that drives me crazy is some of it can be dietary induced, but I don't really like putting negative labels on food, especially whole and processed food, like saying eggs are bad or red meat is bad. I think all of that um, depends. It depends on how much we're consuming and if we are hypers absorbers of those things. And we'll talk about ways to mitigate that. But, um, I think I don't want to speak for everybody on this call, but if you've gone to the doctor and they say your cholesterol is high, maybe stop eating red meat or stop eating eggs. That's kind of like the first line defense that they talk about. And if you look at some of the stats on that, if you're only getting 20% from dietary food, it's probably an internal process that we want to look at. And we'll go through some of the ins and outs with that. So, bile and cholesterol regulation. So, cholesterol converts into necessary bile acids for digestion. Bile acids are essential for proper fat digestion and absorption. Excretion of bile is a primary method to remove excess cholesterol. So once you process bile, the liver then will take cholesterol out of circulating blood and pull it back to the liver to make more bile. So you'll hear us talk a lot about fiber or supporting bile function with different supplements. It is a different lens to look at as far as managing cholesterol. And it definitely has impact on total cholesterol, digestion. Your GI will play a role in this. So I'm kind of understanding some of those processes. And the liver is really going to house and control the majority of the cholesterol. So the liver produces a majority of the body's cholesterol. The liver actively removes LDL from the bloodstream to help synthesize and make more bile. Cholesterol is converted into essential bile acids by the liver. Bile acids production helps excrete excess cholesterol effectively. So getting into some of the hormones cholesterol makes, it's an essential precursor for all sex hormones. So you want to think that cholesterol will then turn into a parent hormone called pregnenolone. And it's a primary starting point for lots of hormones, specifically progesterone and 17-hydroxypregnenolone. Those will make different things like the cortisol metabolism pathway into some of your sex hormones. So you have to have cholesterol to do that. Testosterone and estrogen are vital sex hormones produced from cholesterol. Cortisol, DHEA are also synthesized from cholesterol. And progesterone plays a key role in intermittent steroid hormones. So, understanding that having too low of cholesterol can also inhibit hormone production. So it's a Goldilocks number. And I'm sure all of us coaches have a different idea of optimal cholesterol, and there's a lot more that goes into it than just that total number. And we'll get into some of those specific markers that we like to look at. I think one of the things that I like to look at from a metabolic standpoint is thyroid function. And if you've consulted with me, I reference this one study quite a bit, and it talks about thyroid receptors on the liver and LDL clearance. So, kind of working through that process, thyroid hormone regulates LDL receptor expression in the liver. Proper thyroid function is essential for maintaining healthy cholesterol levels. So you have a lot of thyroid receptor betas on the liver. T3 is one of your active thyroid hormones. You need active thyroid hormone, specifically T3, to improve lipid metabolism at the liver. Low thyroid function reduces the effective clearance of LDL cholesterol. So I tend to see that with Hashimoto's, severe hypothyroidism, into just sluggish thyroid function. That elevation in LDL is something that I see accompany lower output of thyroid hormone. And then, the fourth block here, hypothyroidism commonly causes a significant increase in circulating LDL. So it's not just a statin, it's not just bile function. There's a lot of pieces. So looking at your thyroid and kind of working through those processes is a good checklist to work through if you have high cholesterol. And this is more of Ashley's forte, but gut health also plays a lot in cholesterol. So gut bacteria effectively regulates bile acid recycling. Altered gut microbiota impacts cholesterol and hormone balance. Dysbiosis or overgrowth of certain bacteria significantly disrupt normal cholesterol metabolism. And the last piece here, gut inflammation negatively affects overall metabolic health pathways. Some of the things with GI function, you have an overgrowth of bad bacteria that can produce gram-negative bacterias. Those can drive up cholesterol. They can also just increase um, cardiac inflammation. So GI is also a piece that we want to consider. And it kind of goes back to that bile slide. If we have issues regulating bile or making bile, all of that's part of digestion, fat absorption, excretion. So really being able to look at different lenses here. So thyroid plays a role. GI is going to play a role here. Insulin will also play a role. So insulin resistance significantly raises circulating triglyceride levels. So that's one of the things I look at if I'm looking at someone's labs. If their insulin is elevated, a lot of times you'll see elevations in triglycerides. The other thing you'll see with insulin resistance is low HDL. And on this image right here, it shows the LDLs and they look like little droplets. HDLs are larger form. I think of them more of like a beach or a volleyball, and it kind of bounces off the walls. It's less likely to catch in these cracks and gouges that you can see here. As LDL, as inflammation is present in the cardiovascular system, it goes in to patch up these cracks and gouges. And over time, that can build soft plaque. And that's how we can essentially get some blockage in the arteries. So this metabolic state directly increases risk for overall cardiovascular disease. Altered lipid profile contributes to poor heart health outcomes. So multifactorial, there's several things that can tie into high cholesterol. And if you're working with a coach, we all say more fiber. I would say that everybody could use more fiber. I actively work on getting 30 grams of fiber. I would say I'm not perfect every day. And it's hard for me. Like I just had a ton of oatmeal trying to get some fiber in before this meeting. So fiber binds to bile acids in the intestinal tract. This binding prevents the reabsorption and increases removal. So if we bind it up to fiber, different fibers do different things, but it can basically help attach to stool and help you excrete it. So constipation is a whole other piece that could tie into inflammation, detoxification, lipid clearance. But fiber is not just because your coach tells you we want you to eat it, just because it does regulate cholesterol. It will help regulate blood sugar. It helps with detoxification. There's so many pros to it. Granted, the average American eats like 10 grams of fiber a day. So working on slowly increasing that over time is my recommendation, or you'll be bloated and gassy and not happy. So fiber is a good tool for sure. Liver then uses more cholesterol to create new bile, and that's how we kind of replace and pull cholesterol out of circulation. Increased fiber intake significantly improves overall metabolic health. I know there's some studies showing fiber improves just like overall lifespan as well. So there's just a lot of benefits to getting adequate fiber in your diet. Supplements for cholesterol, because I didn't want to not hit on some of these. So, fibers, psyllium fiber is something that is listed here. That will help with just getting more fiber in the diet. Plant sterols are also really interesting. They stop the reabsorption of cholesterol from food. So we talked about some people being hyperabsorbers. Plant sterols stop the absorption at the intestine. There's some other medications that work very similar, but I've seen this work for people. Everybody's different, so there's a lot of different tools that you can use as you're working through managing your cholesterol. These supplements help optimize overall cardiovascular health. Citrus bergamot is another great option. It lowers LDLs and raises HDLs. Red yeast rice also helps with the synthesis of cholesterol. So it has some statin-like properties. Some people respond well to or respond poorly to even the red yeast rice. So it just depends. There's a lot of things you can try. And CoQ10, if you are on a statin, CoQ10 does deplete, or statins do deplete CoQ10. So if you have to take a statin, you probably should take some CoQ10 as well. Again, we talked about your cholesterol supporting a lot of functions in your body, specifically your mitochondria. So if you're using things like a statin to lower the synthesis of cholesterol, your lipid bilayer of your mitochondria, your cardiolipin, those things can become damaged. So you want to support those with enough antioxidants like a CoQ10. We could continue going in a million directions with supplements. The one thing I will say with supplements, it just depends on the person. There's not enough data. None of them are FDA approved, but that doesn't mean they don't work. Fish oil is not FDA approved. I see that working really well for people. So there's just so many different lenses you could look at to improving cholesterol. And then just getting into some of the pharmaceuticals. So common ones you'll see are statins. You have the PCSK9 inhibitors, ezetimibe. So statins primarily reduce cholesterol production at the liver. Ezetimibe is another defense. Sometimes these are stacked together. Ezetimibe works very similar to plant sterols. Those are going to help with by decreasing cholesterol absorption in the intestines. And PCSK9 inhibitors, they actually reduce PCSK9 at the liver, which lowers cholesterol. So if you are on a statin, you respond negatively to that. There's several other layers of defense someone could use. Give me one. I'm gonna mute that person. If you So, I would say just understanding the different treatments that are available for people. I've had a client who was on a statin. There's limited data that supports this, but it can drive up hemoglobin A1C, it can cause some issues regulating blood sugar. She used a CGM. We caught that in data with data over time. She was gaining weight. She went to the PCSK9. She actually had a decrease in blood sugar over time and cholesterol over months improved. PCSK9s are not talked about a lot because insurance typically doesn't cover them, but they work very well. There's a doctor. He's been in the news recently, so I'm not going to talk about him, but he talks a lot about the PCSK9 inhibitors, and I'm a really big advocate of them if somebody financially can afford them. They seem to work really well. It's a twice a month injection. But I think out of pocket, most people are looking $600-800 as a statin. You can get a statin on your copay for like $5 for 60-day supply. So finances definitely play a role in that. But just understanding there are different drugs, they all work on different things. That's my last slide here. But the thing I would say is just understanding your risk. I think I should have something on lab markers. Yes, and then understanding lab testing. I think that's another important piece when we look at cholesterol. Is it's not just the total, it's not just LDLs. You really want to look at advanced screening. So lipoprotein little a will show you the hereditary component there. ApoBs are going to show the particle count associated with your LDLs. We talked about thyroid impacting cholesterol as well. So you need a full thyroid panel. You also want to look at it with fasting insulin and glucose, maybe an A1C, and then getting an understanding on liver health. Most people are just going to look at maybe an alkaline phosphatase, ALT, AST. I like to look at a GGT. It's going to be more specific for bile ducts. We talked about bile and its role earlier. And then measuring inflammation is the other piece because high cholesterol in isolation, maybe not so bad, but we couple that with high blood pressure, cardiovascular inflammation, and that's that perfect recipe to cause issues with cardiovascular disease. So the inflammatory markers that I like to look at, HS-CRP, homocysteine, those are lower tiered markers that are pretty easy to get covered. There's a lot of other things you can look at. You can look at oxidized LDL, uh, particle accounts associated with your LDLs and HDLs, the size of them. So there's lots of layers you could look at, but if you're just kind of getting started, this is a great place to look as far as advanced screening for cholesterol. And this deck will basically give you an idea of different lenses you can look at as managing cholesterol. So yeah, does anybody have any questions in regards to anything cholesterol related? I'll start there first, and if we don't, we can move on to just general questions.
I have a question.
Hmm.
I know LDL for your cholesterol is the bad cholesterol. I've got it in my head with my little rhyme, but and I'm just asking, is low, uber low, too low, or can you get too low? Or I don't know, like its suggestion is less than 100, for your LDL. Because I know it's something that I have to work on. I have great cholesterol number, but my LDL and HDL aren't proportionate. Like the ratio is different. And I know the LDL has to be lower, but can it get too low at one point if you do things too awesomely?
Yeah, I would say the majority of people, I see like rare outliers of people who don't make enough cholesterol. What I would say, what I see more times than not is the increase of LDLs. But if, say, you're taking a statin and it bottoms out your overall cholesterol profile, say you're not on bioidentical hormones, say you're perimenopause and you're not using anything as far as hormonal support, maybe lower productions of some of your sex hormones. So statins could potentially uh, slow down the synthesis of pregnenolone and slow down the ability of your body to make estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA. So yeah, I think it potentially could be too low. The other thing I see with really low cholesterol, brain fog, fatigue, your brain is made up of cholesterol, so you do need some. I think it's just a balance of that ratio. Things that I like to look at, HDLs, I want those on the higher end of normal, low VLDLs, low LDLs, and low ApoB. I'd say ApoB is something that a lot of people from like a cardiologist standpoint will look at because cholesterol is hydrophobic. It can't move through blood because blood's predominantly water. So those ApoB particles will help move cholesterol around. So I really like to look at that. And then also being in a low inflammatory standpoint from a cardiovascular function, those are things that I think matter long term. And I'm not saying like statins are bad. It's just if I could pick my way through something, I would want to use harsh medication last and kind of work through all my other systems first.
No, I will never take a statin. I mean, that's not an option for me. It's not.
Sure. Yeah, I see a lot of people not wanting to use them or responding poorly to them. That could be that brain fog, that could be elevations in blood sugar, rhabdo, so like muscle fatigue. Those are things that you could see associated with statins. They'll say those are rare case outcomes, but sometimes, stuff happens to people. So just being aware of side effects associated with those drugs.
It's interesting. I mean, I see friends, I got some that are on it, and I just go, I'll food or something, I'll figure it out another way. So
Yeah,
great.
there's a lot of things that can definitely help. So that's a great question.
I've always said if somebody told me to eat 5 pounds of kale a day, I would do it if that would take care of everything.
That's a lot of kale. I don't know.
After that fiber. Thanks.
Yes, absolutely. So if we don't have any other questions around cholesterol, does anybody have any questions? Hormones, peptides, lifestyle stuff. You got all the coaches here. We're happy to answer questions for anybody.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing? I got your email. I need to respond to you. You want to ask some questions?
Yeah, Sophie wanted me to come in. I usually don't come into the group, but yeah, we're just really struggling with trying to get the weight off of me. So, just trying to get some other viewpoints of like what I can do or, like where I'm lacking or, just anything because it's just like super frustrating.
Sure. I think when I go back and think about our initial call, things that I would be curious on is sleep, stress management. I know those are really hard pieces, but how is that going from like a lifestyle perspective?
So sleep is pretty good. I wake up, kind of periodically throughout the night, but I go right back to sleep. And then the stress factor is actually pretty good right now because I'm not really working.
Okay.
Normally, like when I'm doing disaster work, of course, the stress is pretty high. But I've been off now for actually really started since I started working with you guys. I haven't done any disaster work. So I would say that my stress level is fairly low right now and has been for a few months. So I'm not sure. I mean, it may become a factor soon again, and it could be the fact that the stress level was so high for so long that my body, you know what I mean, like doesn't know what to do when it's calm. So I mean, I don't know, but yeah. So hopefully that answers that.
Is it okay if I give a little bit more of like a backstory of like what's been going on and everything?
Yeah.
Okay. So correct me if I'm wrong at any moment as well. Cintra's been trying to lose weight for around, I think it's been like 3 years now. I mean, a while, but 3 years where she started the GLP-1. She was on it. She lost a little bit of weight. Then it kind of just stopped, stalled. We started together. Um, and she was really low carb and everything. So we brought her up a little bit in carbs. She gained like 2 or 3 pounds with it, which, like at the beginning, normal. And then after that, we didn't see any progress. She said she wasn't feeling that good. So I was like, okay, let's bring the carbs back down. So we did that. Again, kind of like weight was staying the same more or less. She started a GLP-3. Um, Now she's on the highest dose. In around end of November, she did something called like a plasma transplant as well. And then after that, we saw a weight gain of around like 8 to 10 pounds in the matter of days. And then since then, it hasn't gone down, it hasn't changed. She's been keeping up with movement, so she's been doing her workouts. We're working on getting steps up, but I would say like an average of, let's say, around 5,000 more or less a week. And nutrition for the most part has been better. I spoke with Ashley I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. She suggested a detox, because we were suspecting that may be like inflammation. And so Cintra was going to be starting that yesterday. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like where we're at, just trying to see what else it could be and just really, yeah, like I completely understand the frustration with not being able to see the results.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me pull one other piece here. I'm curious on something. I want to pull up your info and want to work through a couple pieces here. So let me find, because I believe, Sandra, we met back in probably December. Does that sound about right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, give me one sec. because Sophie had forwarded me these labs. So pregnenolone at that time was low. So that was some of the questions I had around adrenals, if adrenals are doing better. Some of the pieces that we were looking at is like metabolic processes, insulin, triglycerides, IGF-1. We were talking about using like a retatrutide at that point for metabolic tool. Um, let's see, when you had this last set of labs, it looks like 12. So 2 months ago, you had this panel done. It's interesting. So with your retatrutide dosing wise on that, was that like around, are you up to 4 milligrams?
Whatever you gave me in the email is where I'm at.
Okay.
Um, I want to say it's 10 units, so I don't know what the milligram is because I don't break shit down like that.
Yeah.
So,
I would
um,
probably send you some things via email more specific to you. I don't want to be overly broad with a ton of people.
yeah.
I'm assuming if dosing is still standard, um, that's a entry level dosing. So off some of the research Lilly has promoted, starting dosing with retatrutides around 2 milligrams. You're shy of that with yours. So now that's not going to be everything. That's a piece of it.
No, I
Uh,
get it.
I think that if inflammation is a piece there, I don't really know what Ashley thinks from a detox standpoint, but I don't think that that would hurt anything. From a dietary standpoint, is you may be doing this enough antioxidants and polyphenols in your diet. Those are things that I would recommend in conjunction if somebody wanted to do some sort of liver support, TUDCA, artichoke, liposomal glutathione, whatever that is, but being able to eat to support that as well. Your A1C and your insulin, your triglycerides is probably a piece of weight loss resistance for sure. So fine tuning some of the peptide dosing probably would be quite helpful for you. Um, I need to give you some of the specifics. I seen you sent me an email this morning, kind of running through some of these peptides. Let me respond to that, and then
Okay.
I can give you some like targets of what you could look at from dosing. Um, but the peptides will help reduce inflammation, improve blood sugar. But I would say that they're back or they're pieces of that lifestyle component. So if exercise is up, you're moving, that's great. I'd be curious on where your macronutrients are coming from. And if calories were really low prior to coming in, um, I think continuing to pull them down is probably not going to help with uh, your metabolism. Being somewhere in around maintenance, using some tools to improve metabolic flexibility, supporting detox, and then living at a higher calorie standpoint for a period of time to let your body get back to homeostasis and then pull it down. So you're around 1,800 calories. Um, how high did food get, Sophie? When you were increasing carbs, was it still 1,800, but a different macronutrient proportion? Yeah. Yeah, and then you may be someone who responds poorly to carbohydrates right now if you're feeling kind of gross by consuming them. I would think being able to improve insulin sensitivity would be a piece to help you utilize carbohydrates better. I think that if you can't get glucose into the cell, it's going to dump into blood. You could be fatigued after meals. You could feel sluggish. You could feel bloated. So becoming more sensitive to that carbohydrate probably would be an emphasis of mine. The other thing that I hit on quite a bit is like the novelty of calories. So if you are consuming carbohydrates and you are sensitive to them, having them around exercise is the best way to utilize them. When you exercise, you're more likely to uptake glucose into your muscle or into your cell. So if you like a higher fat diet, I would program a lot of my carbohydrates in maybe a pre or post-workout setting, wherever it digests best for you, but you'll be able to utilize those a bit better.
Okay, yeah, I've got a question too about the working out. Um, so the weight doesn't change and the measurements don't change, but I definitely am getting stronger. Like you can clearly see because I've been tracking ever since I started lifting. Like I went from 10 pounds to like 60 pounds. So, my strength is there, but the measurements aren't changing. So that's an interesting factor, I think, too.
Yeah, if someone wanted to go even deeper and just giving general suggestions, DEXA scan is something that someone could consider to see like what is body fat to muscle mass ratio. Um, but it's interesting if you're getting stronger and you're not seeing any changes in inches. And it may not always be waist. I think about, are the arms getting toner? Um, are you seeing changes in the back? Body fat distribution is different person to person, and that's why I really like photos, because most of us aren't looking at our back. And I can tell you a lot of times working with people, I see maybe like starts to see reductions in body fat in the upper back or into the lats. And then for a lot of people, the last place they'll lose weight is going to be abdomen or hips and thighs. Those areas tend to be really stubborn. So I wish I could give you some specifics on that, of like why things aren't changing from a measurement standpoint. I think probably metabolic function plays a role in there, and we can get more specific in our email. I'm kind of being broad here of other layers that you could look at to kind of help with that process.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any other questions? Oh, Ashley left something in here. Detox was to help optimizing liver and opening pathways, reducing inflammation. Yeah, I think that would totally do that. I think the majority of people, I would say globally as a coaching agreement, we would say most people need some support to the liver, some more than others. But I see that being bogged down pretty significantly from um, life, environmental toxins, everything. The liver takes a significant beating. So, giving that a shot as well as optimizing some of those other areas probably would be helpful. I have another question in here, GLP-3. So there is different classifications of the GLP-1 agonists. The one people are probably most familiar with, starting with like Trulicity, which is liraglutide. Then you have the Ozempics or what's the other name? I can't even think of it. It's the semaglutide, and that's a GLP-1. And then you have trizepatide, which is a dual agonist. And then in the past few months, there's been some publishings from Lilly showing the retatrutide, which is a 3-in-1 product. So it has a GLP-1, it has a GIP, and then it has a glucagon component. So it's a weight loss drug. And they just keep on changing them to make them more efficient and stronger. So the lots of really cool information on them. I've used the GLP-1s. I think they're great tools under the right circumstances. Not for everybody, but they can definitely have some utility.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Do you ever see GLP-1s used for cholesterol management?
So they do. They're not directly, but absolutely.
Yeah.
Specifically retatrutide. So I will say that I've seen uh, LDL cholesterol come down pretty significantly. So retatrutide helps basically liberate fat in the liver. So it can significantly improve cholesterol profile, raise HDLs, lower LDLs. I know a lot of people demonize those meds, but if I had to take a medicine and someone wanted me on a statin, I'd probably take a retatrutide over statin. This is my personal opinion. It's not medical advice, but that's what I would think if I'm looking through rationale. But yeah, I will tell you that I used it over the summer, and I do a lot to maintain my LDL cholesterols. It lowered it pretty significantly, and I had an ApoB of like 79, which is I'm usually high 80s. It significantly lowered my LDL and improved my ApoB. So that's a great question. Yes, they do.
Well, it's good to know. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Justin, would you be able to talk a little bit about the GLP-3 versus the GLP-1? I don't know if you have any knowledge on that. I had a client who was interested in like the difference between those.
So, semaglutide or Ozempic, it is just a GLP-1 agonist. So we all make GLP in our gut. Um, GLP is native GLP is very fast, so it's a very short half-life. What they've done is basically with the GLP-1 injectable is it extends that half-life so that it adds that satiation component to there. So it helps with just hunger cravings. I would say that's like the biggest thing people noticed. They were losing weight because no food noise, portion sizes were smaller. I guess pharmaceutical companies said, "Hey, that's a great idea. What else can we do to this drug?" So they added the GIP component. Um, so that's a Oh my goodness. It's a glucose is isotropic peptide, I believe. GIP. I could be wrong. It's been a little time since I've looked at that. That improves the glucose regulation and insulin sensitivity. And then the retatrutide is the glucagon agonist. So the glucagon agonist, some of the things I see with that is it increases basal metabolic rate. So it does help just burn more body fat. Um, I don't really understand the mechanisms of action with it, saying that it helps with preserving more muscle. A lot of people notate that versus the other two. The one thing I'll say with using any of these, specifically like the GLP-3, is if you have high resting heart rate or you have insomnia or you have adrenal insufficiency, the GLP-3 will increase heart rate and just autonomic nervous system will shift where you're more sympathetic. So it can be problematic for people. And I think that's something to highlight is everybody just touts them as like you can take it and nothing happens. It depends on Charlotte coined this for me, the terrain. So what the terrain looks like if, there's a lot of issues going on metabolically, some of these drugs can definitely backfire. So I think they can be helpful, but again, lifestyle is the biggest thing that I emphasize on, and then layering those things on top. But yeah, I would say the GLP-3 is just going to be that glucagon component to the GIP and to the GLP. I'm sure the next thing they're talking about is adding an IGF-1 agonism to there to really preserve and build muscle. We'll be living in the future when that happens. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. They may not need a health coach at that point, but I think we're a long ways from that.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any more takers? All right. Well, I guess we can wrap here. What I will do is I'll put the recap over to be loaded into PT Distinction. I'll also send over these slides if anybody wants to look at them. Sandra, I'll get back with you today, shoot you an email, and I hope this was helpful. Hope you gained some information here, and I appreciate everybody joining. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.